Welcome to Morals Podcast, an open platform to share what's on your mind. You can listen to the episodes on YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, and more. And you can find the podcast listening list on the website moralspodcast.weebly.com. With that said, welcome to episode 23 of the podcast. I'm your host, Moral Truth. Yeah, you don't see me with the webcam this time, otherwise my guest here is gonna lag and such. Yeah, she's from all the way on the other side of the world. But yeah, let's introduce her. So, she is Shree Nation. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, alright. So, why don't you talk a little bit about yourself, about what you do, and etc.
Oh, okay. I'm Shree Nation on YouTube. Otherwise, I'm Shree or Pooja Shree in total. I know, like, weird name. So I just stick with Shree. I'm from India. I'm from the little state of Assam, which is in the northeastern part of India. Very small town, very small city, small town girl. Other than that, I'm very new to YouTube, and besides YouTube, I'm actually more into writing, especially fiction writing. I really want to be a novelist someday, so that's the dream. But YouTube is something that I don't know, like I just started, and I'm kind of intrigued by it, I'd say. And I've met a lot of people. I've met you, for example, and I'm really glad that you invited me to your podcast. I'm honored. I'm quite nervous, and yeah, that's about it. That's all about me.
No, don't worry about it. I know I got you as a guest because I've seen on your content that you like having like long discussions about controversial topics or stuff that goes on, and that's definitely something that I like talking about on the podcast as well. So how long ago did you start YouTube actually, or how long ago did you start writing as well?
My writing goes back a long time, but YouTube is like I would say 2 months or 3 months ago. But YouTube is something that was like really unplanned. Well, writing was also very unplanned for me, but writing was like, as a kid, I would just like I hated school for some reason. I don't know why. Like, school to me was a nightmare. I would just fall asleep during math, social science, everything. But English and like poetry, English literature was something that I just loved doing. I love reading in general. So I would write short poems, short stories. And then by the age of like 13 or 14, I forgot about writing, like life got in the way. And again, at the age of like 21, when I was like really at like a low point, a friend of mine suggested that, like, hey, why don't we just like write something? She's a writer too, but she's a screenwriter. So she doesn't focus on like lengthy text. But I was always like ironically, a movie, if it's like average, couldn't hold my attention. But if a novel is good and it's like 1,000 pages, I would devour that. Like, it can hold my attention for 1,000 pages. But a movie for 2 hours, if it's passable, I won't watch it after the first 45 minutes. So I was always like that. So she suggested we write a screenplay. But I said, we started off by writing a screenplay, but then it just became more and more detailed. So we decided to go for a novel, and it's almost finished now. We're just looking for an agent. And besides that, YouTube was something that I was not planning at all. I was just like, funnily enough, YouTube was something that I started when I had a breakdown.
Really?
Like I was, yeah, because I was just like, there was a lot of like things that I was dealing with, and I didn't know how to deal with it. So I was like, let me just record this, whatever this is, and just talk about it like I'm talking to a therapist. I know, pathetic, but
not at all, not at all. I mean, it's like a platform like for you to vent on like stuff that goes on in your life. I understand. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, and it was not like I was like planning to upload it on YouTube as well. I was like, this is going to be like a video diary. I'm gonna put these videos in a folder, and whenever I feel bad, I'm gonna look at them. But I decided that I'm just gonna upload them so that like if I ever feel like this, I'm gonna look back at it and just realize like this is not where I want to be. And I just talked for like 30 minutes in that video. And it was just like an incoherent rambling about like why I shouldn't jump off a roof, you know? So like that was where I was when I started YouTube. And like, so I uploaded a video and I didn't think about like doing it over and over, like, you know, like daily uploads, weekly uploads, scheduling, you know, like I was not into that mindset of like being a YouTuber or something. But when I uploaded that video, 100 people watched it. Not too many, but 100 people. And from that 100 people, I didn't know any of these people. I didn't share it on Facebook, like, share, subscribe. Like that was, this was
Right.
not like that kind of
Yeah, you didn't have the call to
no.
action at the time, I would say.
Exactly. This is not the kind of video where I'm like, I don't know, like promoting myself. So I was embarrassed by this video. So out of those 100 people, about 6 people messaged me and said that, like, this is really good what you talked about. I went through with it as well. You know, like I went through anxiety, I went through depression, I went through suicidal thoughts. You should, like, you know, you should talk about it more. But there was like one comment that struck with me. Like this was someone that I didn't know. This was someone that, you know, like is from, I have no idea where he or she is from. Like I don't know what country they're from. I never asked them. But they said this one sentence that just stuck with me. They said, I'm considering suicide every day. I'm not worth living. That's what this person said. And like my episode was just this once, you know, like this happened once. And this person is thinking about this every day. And it just like, I don't know, it just blew my, like, I don't know, I couldn't handle it. Like someone dropped that on me, you know, like they told me that. And after that, I continuously stayed in touch with this person. And I just tried to make sure that I was like always in contact with them. So with YouTube, I was like always like, I don't know, like back and forthing with this person. At the same time, I just realized that when I vented on YouTube, when I uploaded something, and when I got this response of like empathy, I would say, like people were empathizing and people were like, you know, I relate to this. I was like, this is not a bad platform. So I started with like not planning anything at all, just uploading random videos about, you know, like I have no idea what I uploaded for the first few times after that video. Like really, nobody should watch those videos. Like, but I decided that like if I am going to upload something, might as well give something of value to people, you know.
Right.
So I started, I started with like talking about things that I love, which is movies. And so I made like 1 or 2 movie reviews and movie analysis criticisms. They fared well, they were good, but my interest was never about like movies or like how to direct movies or how to do this, how to do that. It was always about story. It was always about how someone tells a story and how someone tells a story right. So I decided that I'm not just going to talk about like the movies that I like, but I'm going to talk about every single storyteller that I like. So in that realm, I've only uploaded like 7 videos and I don't have too many subscribers, but I decided I'm going to talk about any storyteller I think is worthy of mention, like whether it's a YouTuber, whether it's a reality TV show star, whether it's a sports person, whether it's, I don't know, like Joe Rogan, whether it's, you know, some professor, whether it's anybody who can convey an idea in the best way possible, I'm going to talk about them. And like, I'm not like deciding that, you know, like that's going to be like my format or something, but yeah, like that is something that, I don't know, that interests me. Like storytelling has always interested me. So yeah, I think I'm going to focus on that aspect in my video.
That's good. Yeah, I could see like from the way you talked about like when you started YouTube at first, you wanted to vent about issues that you were going through. You were kind of like you're like being a therapist yourself in a way, and then it got to a point where like other people who are watching your videos having like is going through something similar, and they're coming to you for advice on how to deal with it. And it's pretty interesting, like as YouTube as a platform, because it's a way to like express your thoughts, express your opinions, etc. That's how it was for me. Like later on, when I moved down into like doing vlogs and telling stories about my job.
So
and yeah, it's
you
cool
started
that.
YouTube
Sorry, go ahead.
a long time ago, right? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
You started YouTube a long time ago, right? Like you started about a year ago, I think.
No,
or
I started around April 2015, and
okay.
before my channel was like much different. Like at first I
Mhm.
was doing like gaming, but then like later on I transitioned to like doing vlogs and some storytelling, and then beginning of this year, that's when I started,
Mm.
hosting my own podcast. So like the
Yeah.
gaming, stopped being on YouTube. I stream games on Mixer, like on a separate platform for streaming. But
Okay.
yeah, like the way I was doing like my vlogs or how I was telling my stories, I had
Hmm.
like the similar approach as you had. I wanted to like put value, into these stories. Have like I would like no pun intended, like have a moral of the story. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, like when you talk about like an issue that like goes on in life, whether if it's like suicidal thoughts or anxiety or depression, and then like somebody else watches that video and then they come to you and like for advice, they share, they open up to you.
Hmm.
It's like wow, like I didn't think like somebody was going to like reach out to me like that. Oh, they're going through that,
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool, that as you express like your thoughts and opinions on mental health, because mental health is definitely important. I don't know why some people still don't see that as an issue, because it's
Yeah.
very important, because if people don't even pay attention to mental health, you never know if somebody might be gone the next day or next week or next month. So I feel
Very
like,
true.
yeah, and I made a tweet like not a while back. I was talking about when like one of my friends, like he passed away. Like he had like complications with like liver surgery. He died at 21. And like
I'm
it
very
really
sorry.
got me thinking that life is too short. It's good to like check up on your friends. Like don't like disconnect from them. Check up on them, see how they're doing. I mean that's what I'm
Mm.
starting to do now, because like I remember like recently somebody contacted me, and it's been like over 5 years since we last talked. So it's pretty
Mm.
cool, to like go back and like talk to those people that I've associated with in the past, and just catch up with them. It's a good feeling.
It's a good feeling. It is. It is. And in today's world, it's like mental health is not only just ignored; it's thought about as taboo to discuss it. Like if you talk about like, oh, I feel sad or vulnerable, and they'll be like, toughen up, man up. Especially for men, it's even worse. It's like one of my friends, he was not like my friend, but we were like mutual friends,
Hmm.
and when I heard of his passing, like he committed suicide, and I couldn't believe it that that person of all could like do that, and then you kind of feel this sense of guilt that you weren't in touch with them enough and you didn't like try to reach out to them. But that's kind of like the point, like even I when I went through something like that, mine was because of hopelessness. It was not because of a chemical imbalance in my brain or something, but uh, because of like issues at home and stuff like that, and all of that kind of like burdening me to the point where I was like, I felt, how am I going to cope with all this responsibility? But when you talk about like people who go through this on like a chemical level, like a clinical depression, so it happens so frequently, and nobody kind of, people talk about it, but they're like, it's sad, it like we need to take care of our children, we need to put them on medication, give them therapy, but it's like the the problem is nobody goes to the core and be like,
Right.
why is this happening? Why is everybody feeling like this? Like, what is this despair? Like we're not in the Great Depression, we're not suffering from polio, we're not in some second third world war, Donald Trump hasn't gone crazy yet. So it's like, what is it? And then we kind of realize that on an individual level, we've become so like, we have social media, we have all of these things, we have gaming, we have this, but we're also cut off from each other. That you can say hello to me, and we might be connected, but I wouldn't know anything about you. Even if I was your
Exactly.
Facebook friend for 10 years, I wouldn't know like what tragedy you're going through, because nobody wants to sit down and talk to you and be like, hey, is there something wrong? Because the second you like decide to sit in a cafe and talk, they'll be on their phone. you're there, but they'll be on a phone. They're on their phone.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and I've seen that as well. Like with this Facebook, like for example, like people would be like, "Oh, I'm gonna add all these people because because I know them." But like, I gotta like really talk to them. Like you added them for a reason, not just because you know them. Like if you're not gonna talk to them, like then why do you have them added as a friend? You know? Yeah, and the same thing too, like with people using their phones in public rather than having a conversation with somebody else. Like at times I could be a little guilty of this at times, but
no, we're all a little guilty of it. But it's like you have to balance it. I believe that.
Of course, yeah.
I don't have too many friends, but I have a few selected friends. Like my friend goals changed from like high school to college. Like from high school I was like, I need to fit in, like I see a group and I'm like, I need to fit in there, like I need to talk to these people and stuff. And my thing was I was like very obese, like morbidly obese from the age of 15. I started gaining excessive amounts of weight. And my thing was that I would always like crack jokes and try to be funny and all of that. It was like just to fit in. And I never had like that problem. Like I was bullied in high school because I was fat. No, I had like one or two comments passed at me, but I was never like bullied and like, thrown to the ground or something like that. So, but I did have friends, but I always wanted to be like, I don't know, likable, I would say, so because let's say if you say you like wrestling and I don't know anything about wrestling, but I would still be like, yeah, wrestling, man, I watch that every night, I love that shit. But I don't know about it, but I would still say it just to have a friend. But now I'm like, I've shrunk that group to like 3 or 4 important people in my life. That's all I give value to. And whenever they come to my house or I go to their place or we talk, we're not like, like, oh, what movie did you watch? We're like, is everything okay? What's going on? Is your job stressing you? Is your health okay? Like the most important things. Like I like to talk about that so that at least they have someone to vent to, and I would have someone to vent to as well, And that's so rare. That's like so rare today. I don't know, like boyfriends and girlfriends don't talk to each other that much. That happens right now.
I mean, I wouldn't know at least, but yeah, kind of like what you're saying, like from high school to college, like your expectations of who you consider as a friend changed, like you would say. Yeah, like for me as well. Like for me personally, I don't really have much friends. I have mostly like acquaintances, people I would say, oh hey, like here and there. But like you said, haven't really like gotten like more into like who they are and like what they're going through, and that's something that we all need to work on, like for sure.
No, but it's like extroversion is a talent for few people, I would say. Like you can be heavily extroverted or you can be heavily introverted, but yeah, it all depends on how much energy you can give. Because for me, it's like if I hang out with a group, like a large group, I feel like my energy has like depleted like 90%. I get tired talking to too many people. I don't know why. I don't know what is wrong with me, but I guess I'm too introverted at some level. Like I am not like extremely introverted, but I can't talk to too many people at once. Yeah, like I can't talk to like a lot of people. Like parties and stuff I can't do. I go crazy, But if it's like 2 people hanging out, like having a beer or something, like with one friend, I'm okay with that. But it's like if it's like a lot of people, that most of them that I don't know, I have to get out of there. I'm past the phase of making a good impression on everybody, like trying to impress everybody. Like I have a few acquaintances as well. Like those people will always be like, I bought this car, I have this new chick, in my life, I have this new thing I bought, I have this new watch. I'm like, great, but who are you trying to impress? It's so empty, most of these things. And I'm not going against extroverted people, obviously, but like
right.
We function differently, like we function differently. And that's the thing, like the people that I've given importance to in my life, I give them the utmost importance. So that's all that matters to me. Like if I'm talking to them, I give them my full attention, like all of that. And I believe that's like really important. Even if you have one friend, you know, like that friend needs to be very important to you and not like someone expendable, you know, like I just know
Right.
that guy, not like that, you know. And yeah, other thing is that you should choose your friends wisely, because you don't know who's out there just to enjoy your company and who's out there because they care about you. So yeah, that's one of the important, I would say.
Yeah, of course. I agree with that, because there have been like times in the past where like I have friends and then like they're around those friends, you know, they show their true colors, I would say. And then, you know,
Yeah.
I cut ties with them. So, and yeah, I kind of like what you're saying too, when people like talk to you about like accomplishments or like good news that are going on in their lives. They're like, oh, I bought this, I bought that. Like, it gets to a point where, you know, people are more into like materialistic things, like rather than, you know, like stuff that has like more like sentimental value, you know, like that, oh, okay,
Exactly.
you bought like you're buying stuff that you want rather than stuff that you need. Like if you say, oh yeah, I bought a PS4, like okay, good, all right, but are you all right? Are you gonna like play something with me or something, or right?
No, yeah, that's funny, because like if someone is like, let's say you are interested in gaming and you buy a PS4, it's like you're gonna cherish it, you know, you're gonna value that thing. You're gonna be like, yeah, I really enjoy this. But kids today, most of, like, not kids, I would say, like even adults, like for them these are like throwaway items. Even the materialistic things that they own is not good enough. It's like waiting for the next iPhone, you know, like the iPhone X is everything right now, but the moment there is a new iPhone, the iPhone X is going to be as valueless as, I don't know, like iPhone 1 or something. So it's sad, like you spend so much time and so much energy on this, like on these things. And the worst part is whenever I watch a Dr. Phil episode and those brats come out, like, you know, like I need $5,000 per month allowance from my mother. I'm like, why do you need that? What are you going to do with it? You know, you're
Exactly.
probably not going to value it. If someone
Are they
gives
gonna
me
invest on it or something?
$5,000,
My gosh, like
exactly.
you can start a
If
business
someone
or
gives, I'm gonna start a business if I get that kind of money. If I get $1,000, I'm gonna invest that, you know. And but that's just like my poor person mentality talking. But that's also it's because that kids, that all these kids who get like money just like just to spend, they would never understand how to make money, not like how to earn money from like a job or something, but uh, how to make $100 out of $10. It's very easy to make $100 out of $10. They just don't know how to do it. You know, the thing about like the stuff they own is that let's say you buy something, let's say you earn a lot from YouTube. The first thing you do is spend it
I
on
wish.
a Louis Vuitton bag. We all win. But let's say you just go, you just are in that zone where AdSense, you're killing it in AdSense, and the first thing you buy is like a Louis Vuitton bag. The thing that most people don't understand is that within a year or 2 years, that bag is going to sell at 50% off. So that tells you about the value of that thing, you know? So when I see a rich person, a rich person buy something, they buy something like real estate or they buy something like art. So what happens here is that they buy these things because the value always doubles, triples, quadruples to an extreme level. Like the art they bought for 6 million, they were going to sell it as 60 million. But a typical 20-year-old, 80-year-old rich person bought, let's say, a 7,000 bag from Louis Vuitton. It has no value 10 years down the line. So it kind of tells you everything, you know? So it's like material things, not all material things have value, unless they have sentimental value, like you said.
Yeah, like if I get, like you said, a Louis Vuitton bag, I'm probably gonna sell it for higher rather than I'm not gonna actually use it, but maybe maybe give it to my mom or something. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm talking about Louis Vuitton because I watched this Dr. Phil episode the other day about this girl who gets $5,000 a month allowance and spends it all on bags. All on bags. I can't relate to that. Like, I don't understand it. $5,000 worth of handbags and backpacks. Like, wow, you know, like I had to sit down for a while and be like, okay, these people exist.
Right, it's like easier to like for them to spend money rather than like earn the money themselves. Like some of these like younger, like the folks in the younger generation, they don't know like what the value of money is. So like
Yeah,
no
and
later.
I think they're sad most of the time. They're sad too, you know. Like,
Yeah, yeah. You don't need a Louis Vuitton bag. You gotta do something else with that. Why don't you just buy some groceries for the family or something? I mean that's what I do at least. But
yeah,
buy something that is
it's
like more useful.
exactly. And the same episode, not the same episode, but I watched this person's YouTube channel, and they said that they made this video like buying a fake Louis Vuitton or Chanel bag. I don't know what it was. I think it was maybe Louis Vuitton. It's like buying a fake Louis Vuitton bag and comparing it with the real one. So when they bought this bag off the street, it was a knockoff. It was a duplicate. Looks exactly the same, like a Chinese product, but it was a
Really?
bag.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. It's like it's a bag. For us, it's like it's a bag, but for them, it's like the trash versus like I don't know, whatever. So they bought this and they were like, ew, this is like the worst thing ever. And I was standing it at the sentence that caught me and I was laughing my ass off was that I was breathing the air of these bags and I feel so disgusted, like I need to leave. And when he opened this fake bag and he's like, I can't believe I'm breathing this disgusting air and like this cheap thing, I can't touch it. It's like he needed Purell for his hands because he touched a fake bag. And I'm like, oh my god, in India there's so many problems, but in America there's like children being ripped off from their mother's hands and you're worried about touching a bag that's poorly made. Like, okay. that's some people's priorities. Like, wow, okay. I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop with this, but
Oh no,
I
no,
just
no
got
worries.
obsessed with that.
Oh, I can hear
I just got
myself now.
obsessed with that episode.
Oh yeah, no,
Sorry.
you have every reason to be upset. Yeah, most definitely. Like, yeah, there's more important issues in the world rather than like scared about touching a fake Louis Vuitton bag. Like, kind of like what you said about families being, separated. Especially like at the border. Of if you know a bit about that, like I think it's like in Mexico, like the Mexican border. There's like families like their parents, like the parents being separated from the children, because they were trying to cross illegally. And
Um,
these people being put in detention centers, and the kids might even like stay there for like the rest of their lives because there's nobody else in the U.S. That could like pick them up. It's
God,
sad.
I heard about that. The thing is that I wanted to follow that story. I saw the headline on my Twitter feed, but I couldn't follow it because another scandal happened in my state where it just blew up. It engulfed all of my feeds on Facebook and Twitter and everywhere. The thing is that like two boys here were killed like for no apparent reason, in a mob lynching because they were mistaken to be child traffickers, but they were not child traffickers. They were just young boys who went sightseeing at this remote village, and the villagers mistook them for child traffickers. So that's what happened here, and everybody was like mad, and all the articles were talking about it. So I couldn't really read on the thing that was happening in Mexico, but I read about it a little bit, like here and there, like tidbits, and it's such a I don't know, it's like what's the point of doing that? Like it's such a bizarre scenario. Like why snatch kids away from their parents? Like give them back to their parents, like what are you doing putting them in detention centers? Like this is an Auschwitz, you know like you're snatching them and putting them in detention centers. Are you going to take care of them? Are you going to give them proper education? No, you're not. You're going to throw them there. It's like I don't know. It's like it doesn't make sense at all. This
Right,
whole
I
story.
understand. Like stuff goes on like in that country as well. That's why there's actually like a legitimate reason why these people are trying to like leave the country and like go to the U.S. and try to get more opportunity.
Yeah.
And like with
Exactly.
the Trump administration, is making it harder for for illegal immigrants to actually get opportunities. It sucks.
It really does. And the thing that the Trump administration, and I don't have anything against Republicans or Democrats simply because I don't understand the politics, like
Yeah, me
the
neither. Yeah,
policies that,
yeah.
yeah, like I don't know what Democrats believe in, what conservatives believe in, and what Republicans believe in. So I can't talk like I can't go against and for someone like. But the thing is that the thing that the party in charge don't understand that immigrants are the backbone of every country. I know that because the thing with my state is that my state of Assam is that it's directly next to Bangladesh. You've heard of Bangladesh, right? That country. So it's like
Yeah, I
it's
have.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's right. It's like if I jump from the border and like immediately I'm in Bangladesh. I don't even need a passport. I don't even have to walk that far from the border. It's so close. So in Bangladesh, obviously situations are not as good, but in Assam, like structurally, financially, economically, things are going well. So most of the immigrants like jump from Bangladesh illegally and they try to find work here. And obviously, like there are, of course, like not the most financially stable and literate people jump the border. We have to understand that people in dire straits and people who are desperate decide to leave their country like that, like decide to leave their motherland. So we need to put that into consideration. Putting that into consideration, the thing is that these people are the only people willing to work minimum wage and willing to work manual labor for half the price. It's always immigrants who work the hardest for like half the amount you would charge for something as tough as, let's say, manual labor. So in here with Bangladesh, it's like Bangladeshis are mostly Muslims. There are Christians, I don't know, but mostly like Muslim people. So I noticed the economic, like I noticed that the thing I said that like immigrants are the backbone of every place they're in is whenever Eid happens, the Eid festival, and it's like whenever Eid and this kind of like Muslim festival happens, there are no public transportation, there is no manual laborers, nobody delivers the paper, nobody delivers the milk, there are no gardeners, there is nobody who is working these jobs. It's like the economy gets stagnated in Assam every time the Muslims decide it's a holiday, every time like the Bangladeshis decide it's a holiday. So you kind of see that you throw all the immigrants out, you have to pick up the work that these people do, the hard work, and you have to start putting your backbone in it. And I don't think most people would be ready for that. But immigrants are always the ones who work the hardest. So that's something I've noticed here, but I don't know how it is in America.
Yeah, I
But
would say it's the same way. Yeah, most definitely. Like immigrants are ready to work hard. They're ready to do anything to leave their own country. For more opportunities.
exactly. And they always
Yeah.
start from the bottom. They always start from like the smallest job and they work the hardest to get to the top. So anybody who's like, this is why I think struggle is so important, because unless you've really struggled, you don't want to leave your comfort zone and you don't want to work that hard. And it's really hard to succeed unless you really want to be struggling to get there. And yeah, immigrants know that really
Right,
well.
right. And then the struggles, it actually makes them stronger. So yeah, and then like when back to like what we talked about earlier about mental health. Like when these kids are like being separated from their parents, like their mental health gets affected. It could like even scar them. For the rest of their lives. If they have to like be away from their parents for like a long period of time. Who knows how long? They have to be separated from their parents. So yeah, and then the parents, their mental health gets affected as well, because knowing that they may or may not like see their children, for like a pretty long time. Like we don't know how long, but like it's just these things, that the Trump administration doesn't really think about, or like whoever is like supporting that.
Yeah. And I don't see the point of that actually. I don't see the point of this separation, like if you found kids who've like jumped the border, or you found these families, there's no point separating the kids from the families. Give the kids back to the families and be like, if you really want to kick them out of the house, let's say, you kick everybody out, and not like, oh, I'm gonna keep your kid, you get out of my house. That is weird, you know? Like, just give the kids back to the families. Don't keep them detained. It's like, what's the point? That's my question as an outsider. What is the point of this? Like, I don't understand. Like, I have to read, but too much into it, but like, I don't get it. Like, putting kids in these camps or whatever, you know?
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, my folks are doing stuff in the kitchen. That's really why I'm hearing all this noise right now. If you can hear it. But yeah, I think this will be a good time to go into our final thoughts segment. So we could just basically talk about, I would say, the moral of the story of this discussion, or our final thoughts on everything we talked about.
Everything we talked about. Oh, we talked about kids dealing with depression in silence and the Trump administration.
Right. What would you say, like, the main thing you would take out of the discussion?
Out of this discussion, I would say that just like we are talking right now, I hope people start talking more to people, not like, not just venting, not just being like, listen to my problems, but talk as well as listen, like do a back and forth instead of being on your cell phones all the time. I know it's hypocritical of me to say that, being a YouTuber and being someone who's always, trying to stay connected on Instagram.
Right, understand. It's a bit easier said than done. Yeah,
it's being easier said than done, but you can always, like, I don't know, you can always, let's say we're not in the social media era, we're in the television era and the radio era. You can always enjoy television and radio, and you can always enjoy a conversation. So value conversation, value that time you get with your friends, your folks, your family, anybody. Talk to them and just don't be silent about anything. And yeah, it's really important for your mental health to be open and not just suffer in silence about anything that might be bothering you. And regarding the politics of it all, this kind of thing, like I said, like with Americans dealing with this situation right now, and with us Assamese people dealing with the death of these two boys for no reason at all, I would say that for me, what happened is, when I read into the story of these two boys dying in Assam for sightseeing, it kept me up for days, especially because there was a viral video that was released of them being beaten to death. So when I watched that video, I lost sleep for 3 days. So my take on this would be, stop focusing on the news. Like, stop focusing on media, stop focusing on everything. Pray for these children. Do what you can, but just really stop reading the news on a daily basis, because it's going to screw with you. Because your mental health is important. At the same time, the news really likes to broadcast negative stuff more than the positive stuff. And if you're already dealing with shit, this is not going to help. Like, it didn't help me reading about those two boys. It's not going to help you reading about these people. You can obviously, sign petitions and try to make a change, but don't constantly immerse yourself in politics, and don't constantly immerse yourself in the news. That's what I would say, because it has a negative effect on your health, on your mental health. And just focus on your friends, your family, what you're trying to do, all your tasks, your creative passion projects, everything. Focus on that. Focus on you instead of focusing on the larger world problems. That's what I would say.
Oh, I just saw it. Yeah, there you go. But yeah, kind of like what you're saying, like, to some extent, like, don't pay too much attention to, like, what goes on in the news, because, some of them, like, is like are like red herrings, like, to like what's really going on. But yeah, like, kind of what we talked about earlier, like, mental health is, like, very important. Like, don't, like, just brush that off aside. Don't just say, oh yeah, just go to therapy, or go get professional help. You gotta, like, find out what's the core of what they're going through, what's the core of their anxiety or their depression or anything else that they're going through. Because I don't know, yeah, mental health is something that not everybody takes seriously, and it's something that we do need to take seriously, because like, there has been stuff going on, like, for example, like in America, like like school shootings are like more becoming a thing, and it sucks, like even like those kids, that are causing it, like they could be going through mental health themselves, and then I guess nobody cared, I would say, and that kind of drove him like to do that, so it's more like, oh, okay, this kid shot up a school, this is this more into that, like what caused him to do it, why did they do it, and like what were they feeling, and that kind of goes back to like with friends as well, like be like, I guess, cautious or skeptical of like who your real friends are, because like you said, like you never know who genuinely cares about you and who's just there like because they're just there. Yeah, because there's people out there, they get joy from like spreading negativity of others, but then again, they might be going through mental health issues, as well. So it's good to like ask about it, like, oh, how you doing, like like ask about like what, like if they're going through anything, and then like if you're going through anything yourself, like definitely share it with someone that you trust, someone who like generally cares about you. And back to like what we talked about with politics, yeah, I don't pay too much attention to it, but it sucks that parents and children, like in the border, like near the border of Mexico, they're getting separated, they're being like they're having their mental health affected. So I would say like the main theme of this would be like mental health is like important, and people have to, they need to care about it, because if you don't, they might form like bigger problems.
Exactly. And with these kids, like you said, with these kids and with like people in Syria and anybody who's faced this kind of like traumatic incidents, they suffer from like mental illnesses that we can't even comprehend, like PTSD, for example. Like they would definitely suffer from PTSD if they have to go through something like this. But with us, if it's like, we kind of brush it off as like nobody would understand because it just would be me complaining about it. It's because everything just starts being so much more important than your mental health that it just doesn't factor in. You don't factor it in unless you have that, like implosion in your head someday. Like, you're focused on studies, you're focused on your job, you're focused on everything else. But at the end of the day, if you're not focused on yourself, it's going to come back, and it's going to come back really bad. Like, I don't want to take too much time from from you, but I didn't know about this musician called Chris Cornell. I never followed him. I think he was like from Soundgarden or something like that. So he committed suicide, I believe. So I didn't know about this, but I was watching this podcast on Joe Rogan, I think, and they were talking about like how Chris Cornell killed himself and nobody predicted it. But it's like they couldn't understand why he did it, like why this happened. There's like, it's so complex, the thought of like a mental illness plaguing you.
Hold on, just give me a moment. I was eating something. Yeah, I was eating like a raw cauliflower. So it's like pretty chewy and crunchy.
Is it delicious?
It's not too bad. I purposely like it cooked better. But yeah. Yeah, I really need some water with that. But yeah, most definitely. Let's actually go ahead and get into the responses from the previous episode's question. So I'm gonna go ahead and read the question again for those who didn't listen to the previous episode. So episode 22's question was, what do you think of Elon Musk's idea to create a database of journalists rated on their credibility? Before I actually get to responses, I want to talk about my response for this question that was asked by Leanify TV. Yeah, he was going to actually be a guest for this episode, but, stuff came up. But he was on with us on a previous episode. He asked a question, and what I think of it is that I could see like the pros and cons of this. Like one of the cons of this, it might be like maybe biased on like who's actually a reliable source and who isn't, and like who's more credible than the other. and then the pros is like, oh, okay, yeah, this guy's more credible, so I'm gonna listen to them. But it's kind of like bittersweet, I would say. If it does get implemented versus if it doesn't. I feel like it's kind of like it'll be like rate my professor, except you're rating your journalist.
Very true.
Yeah. Okay. So the first response comes from CircleStrafe or Straff. He says, "I think that whilst the idea seems reasonable enough on the surface, the thing that worries me is why Elon is bringing it up in the first place. I personally think this is more Elon trying to manipulate the press to get better coverage of his businesses. I know everyone loves Elon, but stick with me on this. Tesla's been getting quite a bit of criticism in the media recently. The criticism is pretty standard fare for a big company creating new emerging technology. News reporters simply jumping on all the possible issues that come with that new tech and making stories out of it. Elon really seems to hate bad press, seeing it as some kind of witch hunt against him. All this media business stuff turned out of him ranting about Tesla's bad press on Twitter, so there's no way it's unrelated. I feel like this idea is Elon's way of trying to throw shade at the current state of the media for daring to criticize his businesses, rather than doing it for philanthropic purposes. It's kind of a dangerous way of operating if you think about it. Creating a media business because you won't like criticism, so you given better coverage in the media. Regardless, Wikipedia has been doing this exact thing for a while now with Wikitribune. So it's not like he's breaking new ground. But yeah, I appreciate you, CircleStrafe, for this really in-depth response on this. Like, if it's to the case where like Elon is trying to come up with the system of rating journalists in a way, like kind of benefits their business, then I could see it's kind of sketchy rather than for philanthropic purposes. But
Yeah,
yeah,
because if for someone like Elon Musk, we have to consider that Elon Musk is more people, consider him to be a scientist and all of that, but he's also a very good businessman. He is one of the best businessmen out there. Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely. Next response comes from Ragnarok Plays Card Games. He says, on the surface, it looks like a great idea, although the idea of rating credibility can be tricky, as a lot of times when a story comes out, journalists use the base facts they have. I feel like it would be too easy to have someone's rating screwed up because of things like this. So they make a statement about a situation, give a statistic that is a rough estimate from police. What happens when the police are wrong? Sure, the journalists can later update the article, but how do you factor that into the credibility? Because if it is based solely on face checking, it gives one wrong post and one correct post, meaning it would average out to a 5 out of 10 post. Then again, just have humans check the stats and have an ability to submit articles for review, and it's good to go.
That's interesting. It's because like the one before that was like posted, they said Wikipedia has already done this, so it's like he's not breaking new ground. But for him to touch on a topic like this, of course, like with Elon Musk being this billionaire businessman, of course he's going to have personal interests on it. He's not going to be like, oh, I'm just going to do it for philanthropic reasons. However, if he also has philanthropic reasons tied to it, I guess he wants to break the barrier of like anybody being biased towards a particular political party because they're either paid by them or either they have like they're biased towards them and against the other party or something like that. They don't want maybe he doesn't want like that to factor into journalism. So even if he does have philanthropic reasons, I would say, there is a great chance of this being manipulated. There's a great chance of this being, I don't know, like, you never know, like, unless you're there, you always have to just listen to someone's word of mouth, basically. You don't know if you can trust them or not, like, no matter how great of a system you bring out with, your robots and your algorithms and with your rating system, people are people. People will always be biased, and people are just going to like who they like to hear. And I see this being more biased than the rest, because if someone, let's say, talks really well, they would listen to him instead of someone who talks the truth. So that could be a big problem. And yeah, there's clearly good responses about this, by the people.
Yeah, so far, yeah. But yeah, the whole thing with Elon Musk, like his proposal, like it looks decent on paper, but then you don't know how, like, how the direction is gonna go, from there. So the next response comes from Zion. At least I finally pronounced his name correctly, because I was saying Zion, but Zion. He says, "I'm surprised we haven't seen stuff like this already, especially when things are written lazily or ignorantly that end up damaging not only what they're talking about, but also other journalist / news articles."
Yeah. So what do you think about that?
I mean, like I said, I haven't really followed too much on this, but read stuff about critiquing other journalists, but I feel like, like some articles might be, more like have more credibility than others, or like on YouTube, for example, like there's like news channels out there, like some might be more credible compared to other ones. Like we could even say, like, for example, like Drama Alert or No Jumper or the H3 podcast or anything like that, or any other platforms that talk about real world issues.
Exactly. It's like,
yeah, it goes back to like what you said about people being biased on what they think is what they think is reliable, I guess, or what they think it's right. Exactly.
And therein lies the problem. People are biased and people are prejudiced and people have certain interests, and they might like something and dislike the other one. So to place this kind of a responsibility on people, like you said, you didn't read about this too much, and I haven't read about it at all. I read the headline somewhere, and immediately I was like, because for me, if I have to talk about myself here, I would probably choose the H3 podcast or something like that, instead of like a podcast that that talks about, like, I don't know, something. And that's my bias right there, because I'm a fan. I'm going to choose them and I'm going to upvote them. Their fans are going to upvote them, and it's like that. If H3 Productions was a news channel first, let's say, and like TYT, so what do you base it on? Like, do you base it on like people who are just fans, or just because they're good journalists? Because H3 is not a journalist. He just picks up a topic he finds interesting and he talks about it. You know? So it's like, I don't know. It's like people would make good decisions. Obviously, I'm not saying that people are stupid or something, but with journalism, with like finding out the truth, it's a tricky situation. I would say let the people do their job. Rating them and trying to see who is better than the rest is not going to help, because let's say an amateur journalist comes up and he's really passionate about telling the truth, and he would bring up things that not even the popular journalist would even dare to touch. Because I forgot his name, but there was this person who talked about the 2008 financial crisis. Now, this person is not popular. This person probably won't be upvoted. Nobody knows who this person is, but he kind of showcased everything that was going with, like, with the 2008 financial crisis, and he laid it out so well. And I got to learn about the economy and the stock market and how everything functions from his article more than other people. So am I a good judge for voting him or voting someone else? Like, I don't know him. I don't know these other people. So I would say no, like, let people do their job. Let this happen as it should happen, and let people decide which of the stories they would follow and which they won't, like, yeah.
Yeah, I was saying earlier, like, because Rate My Professor, it's a similar concept, but except, like, you're seeing which professor, is more like not, I guess more credible, or more like actually doing their job, actually teaching, well, compared to like a journalist, that's informing us about the news, like, I don't know if there's like some sort of like comparison between them, but yeah, that's kind of like how I see it in a way, but again, like a gray area, I would say, for sure. The next response comes from Seeb Official. He was our guest on the previous episode. He says that keeping a database of people is never a good idea. It makes it easier to segregate, divide it, and ultimately discriminate. Yeah, I could agree with this, definitely. Next response comes from Unusually Dumb. He says that for a businessman like him, a kind of ranking system would be very useful. But it really would depend on who is giving the journalists their rating. The idea would be sound as long as the scores are unbiased. But I kind of would just say it's kind of hard to be unbiased when it comes to rating a journalist. I mean, it's easier to rate a professor because, okay, this teacher taught me well, or actually went with the curriculum. So yeah, I'm gonna give him higher rating. Or if you're rating like a Lyft driver, or an Uber driver, but rating a journalist, that feels like an entirely different story.
Yeah, it is, and it's like with Rate My Professor, these people, and you're gonna get something of value from them. But with journalists, you're getting the truth from them, and the truth is not always pretty. You're not always gonna get something sugar coated to you. Like, I want to hear about this person being the most evil person on earth. Let's say about Trump. Like, I don't know about Trump. I don't like Trump. You vote a journalist who like always writes, everything like wrong about Trump. And one day, let's say Trump brings out this bill or this thing that sort of might have worked for some reason. And he's like, maybe Trump is right about that particular thing. Like, that might work for the economy, maybe. Everybody would go against him because he talked well about Trump. Or let's say about Obama, during the Obama administration, like if someone, let's say, was talking really well about Obama, and then suddenly Obama brought out this bill and they're like, maybe I disagree with Obama about this thing, like this might not work, and everybody would go crazy, like, how dare you, So yeah, like biasness will always remain a thing. So I would say like the rating system not only would work, it's pointless because the journalism, the way journalism is portrayed will change, like from, let's say, radio broadcasts to newspapers to television, and now to social media. Most of us get our news from social media. The venue might change, but the way of conveying journalism will always be the same. My take is that let these professionals do their job, and the audience, the viewers, are smart enough to distinguish between this is bullshit and this is credible. This is a credible news source. I'm going to read this because this is actually saying something. And let them be the judge of what's right and what's wrong. And yeah, and I don't know, like, I don't know.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. Like, yeah, biasness is always going to be a thing. Yeah, hello? Hello?
Are you there?
I'm here. Are you here? Hello?
Oh,
hello?
There.
Oh, you kind of lagged out there? All right. Yeah, I kind of get what you're saying. Like, biasness is always going to be a thing. You can't, like, I would say, yeah, like what you say, like let the journalists do their job, and then it'll be up to, the readers or the audience, who they get their news from. If they say, oh, okay, this guy's not reliable, okay, I'm just not going to read what they have to say. And then just look at or find somebody else, that has more reliable stuff to say, like that actually says the truth,
Exactly.
Yeah, they could just simply not go to the other source rather than just like rating them. I guess then it's gonna form more of a bias. Like, okay, yeah, the majority doesn't like this person or this source, so we're just not gonna get our news from them. So yeah, I feel like it's gonna cause more problems.
It's gonna cause more problems, and there's always the potential of having echo chambers built around these people. Like, everybody who votes these people, they'll be like, I'm now in this bubble and I'm not going to get out of it. But the the greatest thing about journalism is that where there's more factual evidence, that person will always win. Like if he or she has enough factual evidence to prove what he's talking about, you can't refute it. You can talk about like 9/11 was an inside job as much as you want, but it's like no matter how many conspiracy theories would come out, the factual evidence will always stand there. And the journalists who reported that, they got it from like credible sources. So ranking them, not ranking them, I don't know. It's like beyond the point. Unless he's talking about like biasness towards like political parties, maybe that's like okay. But yeah, back to the first thing. If he has a personal interest in this, maybe it's not just for philanthropic reasons, but it's whatever, Nobody is a saint here, let's face it. So everybody has their own agenda, I guess.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Let's actually go to the last response from the anarchist Nub. He says that I think the idea of Elon creating a website to judge the trustfulness of media outlets and journalists could be a good idea, with how much fake news circulates from Fox News to CNN and everything in between. It would be good to report the facts of something without an agenda. However, I believe it's also a user-submitted rating of people, and considering the type of people this would attract, I feel like it could fail. And hell, even if it was just Elon, in the words of Mr. West, no one man should have all that power.
Yeah, that's very true. It's like the Wikipedia thing, Wikipedia is out there for the open for everybody. You don't have to like, it's not controlled by someone. Like, yes, it is someone.
Yeah, anybody can edit from Wikipedia. Yeah, someone can like just edit something just to troll or something.
Yeah, exactly. And if someone puts a trolling comment in Wikipedia, people will be like, that stands out, that's not true, and someone will come there and re-edit it. So Wikipedia is there. So for journalists, the rating system for journalists, it's like, I don't know. Even if Elon Musk executes it, I don't see it being successful. Let's say it'll be like a failed social media app like Orkut or MySpace or something. It's not.
Yeah, I have like mixed feelings about it. Yeah, so yeah. I feel like it's like a gray area to think about.
It's like with the biasness thing. I hope I won't bore you with this, but
not at all.
Say something here. Like it's completely off topic, but I feel it's like almost in the similar like parallel field. But I was reading this book on storytelling. I was reading this book on screenwriting, and there was one particular segment where this writer was talking about like you can't start to turn your art, which is the movies, you can't turn your movies into this like sermon, to preach something, like you can't start preaching something to people. You have to convey your meaning into emotion, like you have to convey your idea into an emotion. So let's say you're talking about war and how awful war is, like war causes something. I forgot the fucking code, but war causes all this misery and death and all of it. War causes misery and death. Now war causes misery. You repeat it long enough, and the person who is watching it is gonna pick up a gun. He's gonna get so frustrated. And besides that, it's like you try to preach it all the time, and people are gonna be like, yes, I understand that's right. War is terrible. War is wrong. War is evil. War is this. War is that. But you're preaching to people without understanding the core of their nature. Men love war. Men enjoy war. We love, like this example that I gave, like with the Assam, the two boys being murdered for, going to this like location for sightseeing. Everybody wants blood now. Everybody's like, those people from that particular town who killed those boys, we want to see them hanged. We want to see them all hanged. Like 50 people committed the crime. They want 5,000 people dead. That kind of shows you like who people are. People love war. And no matter how much you try to scream at their faces, I come to your house and I harm your family member, let's say, you're going to be out here to draw blood. No matter how good of a person you are, you'll be like, that motherfucker needs to die. I'm sorry, I'm
Oh
cursing.
no. Oh, no.
That person needs to die, because that's who we are innately. So that kind of speaks about us. And I think it's the same here. You can rank journalists as much as you want. You can build a system and you can do this, you can do that. It's like you do all of this, but people will always be biased. People will always be biased. It's like YouTube. You try to say like, oh, there's guidelines for YouTube, there's rules and stuff, but you see people like Logan Paul getting away with whatever he did. You see people like Logan Paul like having a boxing match that's probably going to make millions for one show. So
Yeah,
it's
with
like
KSI. Mhm.
with KSI, it's like he should have been banned, he should have been kicked out, but no, he's gonna make money, and he's gonna, and so many other people have done so much terrible stuff, and
Oh
they get
yeah.
away with it on YouTube, they get away with it on television, on everything. It's like it speaks volumes. Elon Musk can stick with all of his technology and everything, but he can't predict human beings. Human beings are unpredictable forces, unpredictable rockets in space. You can't like bring them out and be like, you're gonna function this way, and we're gonna build this like accurate system. It's not gonna happen. We're all a-holes, so to speak. So yeah.
Fair enough. Yeah, like kind of like what you say, like I kind of could see that too, like in social media. Sometimes it'd be like videos of like people fighting and everybody trying to record it rather than like breaking the fight off. That does kind of say something, about society. The same like similar concept with like something bad happens, someone like instead of like calling 911, oh, someone just records it. Like
World Star.
people need, yeah, exactly. People need to like set their like their priorities straight. Like why are you gonna record something like for, I mean, in a way like to kind of inform people, but also in a way of that, not like for the sake of like entertainment, because don't try to like record it with the mindset that, oh, you're gonna get clout from it, but
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, it's just hard to say, like sometimes I disappointed in humanity at times.
Yeah, it's frustrating, but that's where I will go back to the old point, like men love war, and there's a reason why. There's a reason why. I'm not, of course I'm not condoning this kind of, like go take out your phone when someone is hurt or someone is fighting, like try to break up the fight. But the thing is that there's a reason why we stop, or we kind of like hit the brakes and slowly look at a car crash on the highway. We can't look away from, we can't look away from carnage. We can't look away from destruction. We can't look away from, like people hurting people. I don't know why, like I can't explain it, but it's something in us, that kind of wants to see this. Like, let's say with something bad happened with these two boys, or with like anything else, and someone says there's a video about it, no question everybody would go to Live Leak or Gore something, and they would go watch the video. There's no explanation why we're watching it. It's obviously horrible, but there's a reason why websites like these exist. There's a reason why World Star is doing so well, is because no matter what we say or do, we kind of want to watch this thing happening. We like action movies. We like this and we like that. It's like, I like to think of it as like all of us have two sides, like all of us have two sides to ourselves. And because we can't predict it, we don't know like where we stand. Are we, of course I'm not going to be the person who films someone while they're fighting, but like, am I going to be the one who's going to ignore the video of that happening? Maybe not, like maybe I will go to World Star and I'll watch that video, so what does that say about me? So it's like, I like to think of like both sides of us, like we're good as well as bad, and it's interesting. It's very intriguing. I'm not necessarily condoning this kind of action, but I think there's a part in all of us that sort of, I don't know, that sort of can't look away from a car crash on a highway, let's say. That's what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Right, like even like before like War Star happened, like for like thousands of years, like there's been like the concept of people like watching fights and like it's like that, the adrenaline that people get from watching that, or being in the fights.
Exactly.
Like something needs to be done. Like because I don't know, sometimes fights could be like over bias or like certain issues are not as important or certain issues that are important. But yeah, with that said, let's actually get into coming up with our question for episode 23 of the podcast. So any question that you like our listeners to answer for the next episode? Any question you have in mind?
Any question? Okay, my question would be, all right, my question would be about what I just spoke about right now. Do you think there is a part of us that's dark? And if you think there is, like for me there is, but if you think there is, do you think we need to address it? Like, yes, there is a part of me that that is dark and is like inside, and do we need to address it or do we need to suppress it? That's my question for the people.
Okay, all right. So so your question is basically asking, do you believe that there's a dark side in us all? And if so, like, what can we do to like?
No, do we need to address it? Like, yes, there is, and I accept it, or do we need to suppress it? Like, like, no, I can be better than that. I'm like, like something like that.
Okay, all right. I get you now. Yeah, most definitely. And yeah, folks, that's going to be the question for episode 23. Like, if you're on YouTube, you can see it on the bottom of your screen. To answer this question, you could reply in the comments below on YouTube. You could send me an email at moretruthbusiness@gmail.com, where you can also message me on Facebook or Twitter at Moore's Podcast, and we'll be sure to read the responses on the next episode. And with that said, that concludes episode 23 of Moore's Podcast. I would like to thank Shree Nation for being my guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed this. I had lots of fun. I hope we talk about new stuff again.
Yeah, for sure. We'll definitely have all her social media and her links in the show notes. Most definitely.
Yay.
Yeah, and with that said, I'm More Truth. You can't really see my face, but you'll see my face next time on a future episode. And yeah, that concludes the episode. I'm More Truth, your host of Moore's Podcast. Take care, have a great rest of your day, and let the Moors be with you.